Hello and welcome to the Stuff podcast, or vodcast as it happens. Today I'm speaking to Chris Boxall, who's the head of fraud at FNB Card. My name is Toby Shapshak and I'm just the lowly editor-in-chief at Stuff, which once upon a time was a magazine but is now so much more. And today we are talking about credit card fraud or contact payment fraud, because actually I don't actually own a credit card anymore. Well, I do, but I never carry it around with me. In fact, exactly. I don't even own a wallet, Chris. I mean, it's like, I think about the wallet as the signifier of like maleness. Like, a man was his wallet, I don't even carry one. My credit card is entirely digital. It's a virtual credit card.
Yeah.
And it's on my phone.
I'm in the exact same position. I don't carry my wallet anywhere. I don't have my cards on me at every given point. I think at this point in time, the only time I use it is to go through a toll gate, knowing that they require the physical card if they're not contactless enabled. But to your point, we've seen consumers around the world, and especially in South Africa, go that same route. Not all have migrated, but we're seeing the migration slowly as it happens.
But isn't it a kind of logical progression? Don't you feel like it's the way things used to be? I grew up remembering where you went to the bank, you had a book. And the book fell on the dog. We didn't plan the Labrador. The Labrador planned it all by herself. And they filled in the book. And if you lost the book, that was it.
That was it, done. Yeah.
And then things evolved from a checkbook. I remember watching my mother balance her checkbook, right? You wrote on the stub and then you copied from the stub to the thing. And now all of a sudden you had credit cards they'd swipe them with a piece of paper and it would be reconciled at the end of the month. And then it became an electronic point of sale terminal. And all of this is being done in real time to the point where we don't need the physical token of a credit card anymore, because we have an incredibly sophisticated digital device on us all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, no one even takes the slips anymore because they've got all the information on hand.
I don't.
So we almost say, no, don't worry about the slip. You can keep that.
I say to people, please don't print, don't waste paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point, it's very much part of the progression, part of the technology. What people don't understand is there's a wear and tear element of putting a card into a terminal every single time. It takes time in queues, retailers, anywhere you go, it takes that additional time. And I think customers have almost come to expect now, when I get to the till, you're waiting for the final total of the till to show up so you can tap.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, it was, okay, please get out the card. Now, please dip. Let's wait for it to dial up.
There were two things I noticed about myself, and I laughed at myself when I realized these. The one was when I stopped signing my full signature and just my initials, and I feel like I added years to my life. And it was completely irrational, because it's what? An extra second, an extra 2 seconds. It can't be possible.
Pretty much.
And then when I started tapping instead of swiping, and that seemed to be like that, click to tap. It just seemed to add like more years to my life. And now I don't do anything without my phone, and it's quite remarkable.
Exactly. And I think also you tapped a card at one stage and you expected it. And now you realize you don't tap the card. You're tapping your phone. You're tapping your watch. You're tapping various other things that no longer relate to the phone.
I mean, do you think COVID accelerated that?
Absolutely.
Because you didn't have to touch a device?
Yes, and I think people were so much more aware of what they were touching,
Yeah.
who was close to them in close proximity. We all know how people felt in queues while they were doing their shopping.
People have always felt like that in queues,
Absolutely.
but now they had a reason to hate the other people in front of them.
Agreed. and then I think they were also very wary of the amount of sanitizer that went into terminals during COVID, trying to make sure everyone was safe.
Yes.
The tapping became almost, it had to be done, in order to get past what was this large...
I mean, if only we never called it tap and go. If the industry called it like wave in the general direction. It doesn't have the same thing, does it? Wave in the general direction.
Not quite the same.
Because you don't actually have to make physical contact.
No.
It's just the proximity. And I think it's revolutionized the speed of being able to make payments. But I suppose criminals are smart guys and women. They've found a way to hack what seems like a pretty secure system. Let's talk about that. I mean,
Sure.
they always, trying to do this, but
I think the thing about fraudsters is you can always be 2 steps ahead, but they're going to pick up on the loopholes.
Yeah.
They're going to pick up on the various items. And as soon as you create something new, they're racing you to find where the next problem is, you know. With contactless, what people need to understand, I think the main thing that we try to tell our consumers is contactless is the same as dip. Your only difference is your PIN.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's this big misnomer in the market that somebody's going to run up to you with a point of sale on hand and tap it against your pocket.
Yeah.
Or they're going to run away with your card and go and tap it on point of sales elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's not really something we see in market. If we do see it, it's for very low values, and we can almost tell when the card has gone missing.
Yeah.
We have more people probably trying to tell us that actually their card's been stolen and somebody's tapping it, when we can see it's legitimately tapped at the same merchants they were tapping at a week before. You know?
Really?
Yeah, you get some of those contexts
so
that
it's
occur.
a problem between user and computer, user and chair.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And they're more saying, I've lost my card, and some are taking a chance, some haven't, and they've given it to a child. But in contactless, there's been a few social media videos of showing somebody with a point of sale, taps it on or gets near to a consumer.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those, and I wasn't entirely convinced.
No.
I mean, there's only so much, personally, I think, that a bank can do. When it's your card, you got to be a little bit more, the Afrikaans word is wees. You got to be a bit more wise about how you use it. And if you're tapping your card and the person behind the till says, I didn't get the payment, but someone else did it or read it, you know, that you got to be awake to that. I'm convinced.
And you get notifications in app. And logically, customers can set their own settings. They can say, what value do I want to see on my phone? But I'd say 99% of transactions are being sent to app if they haven't.
Always.
And then you know what's going through on your card. So
I'm
instant.
fastidious at watching, firstly, those SMS and now the notifications. You know, I loved it when FNB switched, because FNB, as it happens, is my bank, switched from SMS to in-app notifications. Why? Because as long as I've reported on bank fraud and other kinds of fraud, there's always the SMS. Absolutely. And what the vast majority of people don't know is the concept of two-factor authentication. I shouldn't say that. Now people know.
Yes.
So the SMS, the OTP, used to be the 2FA.
Yes.
I'm joking. The 2FA means two-factor authentication. And it pains me to say this, but I agree with Elon Musk on this thing, where he stopped using SMSs for Twitter verification. He said it was out of cost. I think it's out of security. You can't log into my app without my face, without all the other steps I've done. You can't create a safe version of the app without me, without live photographs. I love that. Like my phone died overnight. I got a new phone the next day. A few selfies, show that I'm alive, turn my head, move my eyes, you know.
You're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm like, it's secure, and it still lets me get in using something that no criminal can steal, which is, you know, as my friend Stevens once said of me, devilishly handsome but not very bright. but it's such a no-brainer. You know, to get into that, to hack the app means you have to hack somebody's phone. You have to hack their account, whether it's Android or iOS. You have to hack the bank app. I think it's more secure. Am I mistaken? Am I being not paranoid enough?
No, not at all. I think it's very secure. And I think you touched on earlier the fact that back in the day you had to finish your purchase with a signature, right? And then, as technology would have it, you went from the signature, which gave the bank very little information as to whether it was legit or not. We then moved to PIN, right? Now you're sitting there, you're typing your PIN. Only you know your PIN, so you wouldn't give it to anyone else. That's easy. And now you're at a point where facial biometrics, fingerprint on devices, it's better than the PIN. Because the PIN you can give away. And we've seen that for years where we obviously say, please do not share this with anyone. But the fraudsters find that sticky note in your purse or wallet and they say, they wrote it down, you know, I can now use it. With biometrics, whether facial or fingerprint, you're at a degree of accuracy where you're 99 to 99.999% sure that you've got the right customer. But I think that's where the problem is today, is that the fraudsters are not trying to beat the security. The security is there. They're trying to beat the individual and what they're doing with their device.
Which is in effect social engineering.
Absolutely.
It's what people are not aware of. The weakest link in the system is actually people. So as long as you are always paranoid, Andy Grove, the former CEO and founder of Intel, always said, only the paranoid survive. And I really like that ethos, which is, there's no point having a security protocol if you don't obsessively always use it.
Agreed. It's not easy. And I'll give that to consumers. The number of fraudsters out there and the social engineering, if you think AI, deep fakes, the ability to act as if you're somebody you're not is getting more and more prevalent in the industry. And it comes down to how much do I need to safeguard my information and how much, because a lot of people think that other people are giving out their information, when the actual fact is, slowly but surely, when you take on a new subscription service, you take on a new merchant, or you're doing your payments online at somebody new, we can't attest to their security all the time. And that's probably where small bits of your information leak, just enough for the fraudsters to piece together a story that sounds legitimate that they can sell you over the phone.
Absolutely. And then the examples of deepfake audio are really quite scary. I interviewed someone from Checkpoint Security who said that. I mean, it's really, deepfake audios are there. There's not, the technology is pretty mature. But you've got to be paranoid. And I always say to people, if it seems to be too good to be true, it's not. Also, be conscious. People don't just change bank details, phone and verify. It's incumbent on us, I think. There's this big court case that was recently overturned. One of the law firms, I think it was ENS, was found, they were judged against by the court because they didn't warn a woman that she could get scammed. She got scammed. She got hacked. Her account was compromised, not the law firm. The lower court, the high court, found the law firm responsible, and the high court said no, it's user error. And as terrible as it is for this woman, I mean, it makes total sense to me. I don't expect someone else to be responsible for my security. I'm responsible. It's my money. It's my stuff, and I'm like overzealously secure in terms of cybersecurity. I have an unnecessarily paranoid approach to it. And I think that's the way it should go.
Should be. And I myself, there's a few points of where you get to when you're doing an online purchase and you go, how do I trust where I am? This might be Takealot, could be a Cape Union Mart, it could be various different retailers. You're trying to say, how do I know for sure this is their site? And then some of the best practices, copy it, paste it into a Google search, see if it's number one and that the URL is complete. And
that's a nice trick.
And that's almost completely outside of the banking sphere of what we're doing in terms of detecting transactions, making sure it's safe, trying to authorize it via your phone. Just some simple things like that help you as an individual to safeguard some of your own.
I mean, I'm sure AI has made your life infinitely
more difficult.
Fast? No, well, difficult, but better. I mean, I remember once being told by a bank executive who may well have been from FNB or from Visa that there were like three things. If someone bought a pair of Nike trainers and an iPod, and I can never remember the third one. If they bought any three of those, they knew the card had been stolen, because those were it was still in the days of swiping, not even tapping. That was, then they knew someone was buying something of high value that was easily disposable.
Sure.
I got notified I got an SMS and saw my card had been hacked. I've called the call center. They solved it immediately. I mean, that's my only experience of it, and it was because I got the notification. I was having a drink with a friend from Australia. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Sorry, my card's been cloned."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Wow, I would never get that message." I mean, it's 10 years ago.
We still do a lot of proactive communication to customer. You can see what an average customer's spend is, what is within their behavior, and you can see the outliers in general. Sometimes you get the fully authenticated transactions where the customer is still on the phone to the fraudster. They think they're verifying themselves at the bank. And actually what they're doing is they're handing away information. Sure. So to your point on the SMS is, yes, you may be getting an SMS from the bank. Generally, what we say is use your banking app or use the contact number on the back.
I'm saying the SMS, this was old. But
yes.
Like now, if it's not through the... I mean, I got a phone call, how's this, from one of the blood banks, must have been Lancet. And I got these weird phone... Anyway, I phoned this woman. I said to her, listen, you can't keep sending me threatening SMSs to pay you the 26 Rand 33 that my medical aid didn't cover.
Yeah.
When I get SMSs from a company saying, please pay money into this account, I call it spam.
Yeah.
Like, please update your information. If you're not going to email me, you know, I mean, this is maybe 3 years ago now. I'm just as paranoid about email.
Yeah.
You know, so ultimately, I suppose we're going to have to move to an in-app communication system, because that we know is verified, authenticated, secure communication.
I agree with you. I think the one other element here is that there are, let's say, different parts of the market that can afford different things.
Yeah.
And the cell phones that have apps are getting cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah.
I was in a store the other day, I think it was $400 was the total cost of a phone where I could have an FNB app installed, WhatsApp and the likes, but you still have parts of the market that you need to service.
Yeah, with an SMS.
You know, and that's where you almost want to differentiate your comms, and we do, depending on, you know, what the customer's enabled for as to where we're going to send them, especially fraud communications, but you always have to have both open, which does leave you liable as a customer to being targeted. But at the same time, we say, you've got your card, you've got your app, you've got various things that have legitimate contact numbers in there. If at any stage you're not comfortable, call in that way, because at least we can verify you and you can verify us.
Yeah.
A lot of what's happening today is, I'm not sure of the number. It might be FNB, but you also get the ability to change your name on the likes of various apps.
Oh, you
can put something legitimate together and look.
If someone calls me, I always call them back.
Yes.
And I don't call the number. I say I don't want to call you back. And I call the number I know is the legitimate number, and it's because I'm just paranoid about it, you know. And I think that's the right approach.
Paranoid but safe.
Yeah,
You know, it's what you
know. It's such a weird thing about South Africans. Like, we are so determined to have great physical security. You know, depending on the average house, there's a high wall, electric fences, machine gun emplacements, you know, guard towers, you know, those. I don't know if anyone's ever behind those like big tall buildings, the walls with glass, you know, things in Sandhurst. I don't know, but we're so conscious of our physical safety and security, but just oblivious about cyber security. It's been my bugbear for a decade, and people think I'm irrationally paranoid. I think I'm very rationally paranoid because, you know, if someone logs into your bank account, it's gone. And it's not the bank's fault. That's what I say to people. If your email gets hacked, it's not someone else's fault. It's because you've used the same password twice. You don't have two-factor authentication. If you get hacked, it's and you're not doing the right things, you can't blame someone else.
No, and I think that's very much the case. And what we try and do is give you various options to authenticate yourself. You know, go into the app when you do an online purchase. And I think it's also a misunderstood thing. If you log on to a online retailer today and you do a purchase, you're getting one of two different transactions. You're getting one where you get no authentication mechanism and the funds will come off your account. And a customer is protected because they didn't authenticate themselves, and the merchant takes the possible risk, which means that...
So that's like, I've noticed that Amazon, Take-A-Lot, Mr. Delivery, you know, and I've asked this in the past. So they, you know, there's some protection for the consumer.
Yes. You've got to go through the admin. Don't get me wrong. If it is fraudulent, you've got to go through the admin, but you know the funds are coming back. Yeah. You know, and that's where the bank steps in and says, you know, give us X number of days to verify this isn't or this is or is not legitimate, and then we can give you your funds back. But where the customer authenticates, there's kind of a shift in story. Yeah. Because now the customer is saying, I'm behind app, I'm behind login. I might have used my physical card or my virtual card, but I'm authenticating in the app. And that's where we're going, right, well, you've told us it's you. You know, that makes it very difficult for us to say it's a fraudster.
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens is either the customer's OTP, that is sometimes sent by SMS because they didn't want an app notification or it wasn't defaulted to app. We send it to SMS and they're phished or vished via app. Yeah. Or to the previous example is fraud call center agent is calling them. They're now handing over the OTP as well as the card details to who they think is the fraud department. It was actually the fraudster going, well, you've handed me the authentication. Your protection is being sent over the phone in 3 or 4 digits.
I mean, nobody tries that with me very often, but during COVID in 2020, someone tried to phish and hack my wife's MTN cell phone line.
Oh, right.
It was so hilarious. I mean, she put him in his place immediately, but she was like, well, I'm at home, my husband's at home, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something to it. And she gave the phone to me. Oh, it was so charming. I wrote down everything he said. It was like, and it was so interesting to experience that firsthand. And they play all the games. You're in danger, you could lose it, threats to your whatever. Then they get a bit aggressive. I can't help you if you don't let me help you now. But the part that I found the most charming was that he was also working from home because I could hear his kids in the background. And I think about the people I know who've been conned, and it's social engineering.
Yeah.
And these guys just practice day in, day out. They're getting Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours in practice. And it's always that, Eugene Kaspersky told me that cyber criminals have they have like medical aid, they fill in leave forms. So it's a really sophisticated industry that
it is.
And the only way, I don't dissolve the bank of or any bank of responsibility, but at the end of the day, I know that I'm the only one who knows my password.
Yes, and that's the important thing.
And my bank password I've never written down ever.
I'm sure you're one of few, but I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, and people say why, and I go, because it's all my money. If that gets compromised, I'm really, and I have and I'm sure you get these horror stories where people have been compromised.
Loads, and we do feel for the customer, but it's the keys to the castle, as you put it.
Nice phrase. I haven't heard it for a while.
And we use it quite often because you say, what happened? They handed away the keys to the castle. And regardless of liability shift, it's just one of those where everyone goes, oh no. And there's large values moving around. We've also seen a bit of a shift to wallets, as you've mentioned, which has prompted a bit of a change in MO. As you would put it. The fraudsters used to go for, can I get your card details over the phone, via email, via SMS, to, can I get you to give me those card details, but also allow me to enroll it in one of the smartphone wallets? Okay, so if you think about yourself...
I just can't believe people would go through that whole process.
Yes.
And let someone else do it. It like beggars belief.
And there the problem is, you've given away the information. Unlike a once-off transaction, you've allowed for a card to be enrolled in a wallet that uses all of the clever security we have today with the likes of biometrics, facial, fingerprint.
I just can't believe people are that gullible.
Yeah. And you would say gullible, and you listen to some of the calls and you're going, it sounds legitimate. The social engineering behind it is comprehensive. I've had friends and family in the exact same position, and I've gone, that's embarrassing.
Well, that's because they don't listen to enough podcasts like this.
Exactly.
From Stuff. On that happy note, Chris. But I suppose those stories are they are becoming more and more the exception. I suppose we do have better technology.
Yes.
We've just got to get people to listen to more podcasts
Absolutely.
about social engineering and how to protect yourself.
Agreed.
Chris Boxall, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Toby Shapshak. You've been watching and listening to the Stuff podcast/vodcast. Please like us and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. That really does help. And you can read more every day on stuff.co.za. Thank you.